Welcome to the Saturday Cadence podcast. I'm Blake Biscardi, and remember, the Saturday Cadence podcast is the heartbeat of college football. OH, we are delighted to host an episode, a national championship episode for Ohio State, as they have just won the title for the 9th time, beating Notre Dame 34-23. My name is Blake Biscardi, and welcome into Saturday Cadence. David Wertheim and Grant Kincaid just beaming to be alongside today. David, your thoughts on Ohio State winning its 9th title, going through a gauntlet of a playoff run against two SEC teams, Oregon and Notre Dame. So give us your thoughts here. Ryan Day, hoist the gold trophy. What do you got?
Oh man, it's been a long time coming. And for me personally, I'm a guy who went to the Ohio State University, got there in 2017, um, went through a couple tough losses that year, a really tough loss to Purdue the following year. Urban Meyer leaves. I skip my math recitation, whatever business math I was taking at the time, to go to Urban's last press conference. Saw Ryan Day's first press conference when I was with 11 Warriors, was a part of those. And yes, so I've seen it. I've seen the Ryan Day era literally from day one until today. And, it's bittersweet knowing that I wasn't a student when they won this one, but just to see the reaction from the fans and the team and the coaches and the players and, everybody at Ohio State, from Ross Bjork, the AD, all the way down to us talking about it here today. What a great accomplishment. And again, just truly a magical season. Like you said, a magical run over the last 4 games when they took down a bunch of, giants in the sport, really. And some perennial powerhouses and some other programs that are just starting to get back to that top level. And it was impressive and fun and a really great way for Ohio State's star-studded senior class to go out. So really, that's just my thoughts early as I've been processing the last 48 hours or so. Just what a great feeling it must be for Ryan Day and these players and the program to hoist that trophy there on Monday night against Notre Dame. It was pretty special to watch, and I'm sure it was special for those guys too. They did it. They did what they said they were going to do, and I respect the hell out of them for it.
Yeah, I mean, it was historic. The whole run. What are the chances we win, that first BCS championship, the first expanded playoff championship, and then the second expanded playoff championship? So there's just kind of been this dramatic effect with Ohio State football, the way it's shaked out. But to see Ryan Day bounce back from that Michigan loss, and steamroll through Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame, it's just like it leaves you speechless. And it did each and every week, because each and every week, obviously Tennessee and Oregon, those games kind of ended early. Not that that didn't make your jaw drop what the performance was, but the game against Texas, it was 1 yard away from the end zone when Jack Sawyer, made that incredible play. That could have been a whole different game. And then obviously Notre Dame, they put up a great fight in the second half to make it a one possession game. But you kind of expected, well, there's no way they can pull this off. They're going to wear down. But then it brings you back to how well they prepared throughout the season. It was highlighted a lot how Ryan Day was, there was a very concerted effort to split the carries between Henderson and Judkins throughout the year, and save them as much as they could. And, with this expanded playoff, they thought so far ahead of as to, this is an NFL season, almost. We have to sneak these guys little mini bye weeks anywhere we can, because we have to be planning on playing 3 extra games that we aren't used to. So just start to finish to win the championship after Ryan Day has faced so much, obviously from Ohio State's fan base, but just from the country, just a lot of people kind of picking on him. And I think, he responded how Ryan Day responds, and he went on a mission, and I respect him just like David does.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, 51 days ago, this team loses to Michigan, and people wanted him fired. They wanted the senior class run out of Columbus. I mean, part of the fan base was done. And his wife said it in an interview with 10 TV in Columbus. She goes, Ryan just said to her, I've got to fight my way out of this. And that is exactly what he did. That's exactly what the team did, what the program did. And we asked him about that at Media Day on Saturday. We said, the emotional ups and downs that your team's had to go through, what's it speak to your team culture to be able to respond in a way like that? And he said one of the biggest things is you either have momentum or you don't. And when you don't have momentum, you got to go get it. And Ohio State went and got it. And they went and got it inside that locker room. They didn't rely on anything external. They relied on internal in that locker room. They're going to go out against Tennessee and get that momentum. And they never let it go. They trailed only the amount of time they possessed the ball after Notre Dame's first drive in the national championship. That 6 minutes was the only time the Buckeyes trailed the entire CFP.
Unbelievable.
So it is. It just goes to show you how talented that team is. How we said in the regular season that this team was focused. And then I said in the other show yesterday that I want to change that word from focused to determined. They were determined to hoist that trophy at the end of the season, because you could say that every team is focused, and they are, but this team was on a mission. They completed the mission. And to see Ryan Day's reaction on the sideline, like we all talked about, I think that was probably the coolest moment. Again, for the seniors too, absolutely, with the players, all of them together. It was just so special seeing their reaction, the emotion that came out. And it was funny. We saw Jack Sawyer get the scoop and score against Texas, and Day kind of jump up into his arms. He joked afterwards he didn't know where that came from. He just kind of reacted in the moment. We had the same reaction after the Gatorade bath against over to Josh Fryer winning the national championship game. It was just special all around. And for those seniors to go out and do what they did, and they beat a good Notre Dame team. I know that game was a little out of hand at one point, 31-7, but Notre Dame did what Notre Dame's done all year, and they fought back. They were relentless. They were disciplined. They got the turnovers. They kept themselves in the game, and they fought. So that was a hard-earned, well-earned, and deserved national championship for Ohio State. And David, you were the most vocal on this show just in the critique of Ryan Day. And to your credit, too, I think the expectations in Columbus warrant that kind of standard to give, especially for the younger fan or the younger person in general. I mean, since 2002, Ohio State has won 3 national championship games, and they've played in 6. And then if you go before that, there was a 34-year drought. So it's different for this generation of Ohio State fans, and even those who are older. What you remember of Ohio State is this level of football that we knew that they were capable of. So what does this mean for Ryan Day in your eyes, and how it changes the narrative around him? There was a lot of talk about him. Can he win the big game? What's he going to do? Is he ever going to get over that hurdle? But Kirby Smart started the same way. Ryan Day's only been a head coach for 6 years, and he wins a national championship in year 6 in the hardest fashion ever in college football. Kirby Smart, it took him 6 years to win it at Georgia. The narrative completely changes. So, David, as you hold the pen in your hand to write the narrative of Ryan Day, what does it say right now?
Well, I'm going to save some of it for later in the show, but I will say right now what I'll say is that, yes, it took till year 6 for Ryan Day to win a championship. And that is on par with some of the other greats that we've seen in college football. Like you mentioned, Kirby Smart. I mean, there's only 3 active coaches who have won one now. One of them is Dabo, who certainly passed his peak. One of them is Kirby, and of course, Ryan Day. And that means something, obviously. Clearly, it's not easy to do, or everybody would do it. But I think the thing the fans were so frustrated about is how many times they could have done it before this year. You know, you look at a team like 2019 that, may or may not have beaten LSU. Probably not. But they could have had the chance. That might have been a better Ohio State team than this year's team. You look at a team in 2020 that got to the championship game, but had no chance against the star-studded Alabama team. And then you look for 2 years, 2021 and 2022, and the Ohio State basically wasn't running a defense. They lose to Georgia in 2022 in a game that if they win, Ryan Day gets that title in his 4th season. And then last year, of course, looking back in hindsight, they weren't winning anything with Kyle McCord. But still, losing to Michigan again is obviously disappointing, and then to miss the playoffs. So I think that's where the frustration comes from, is how many times they were so close. And you could even taper that back to the end of the Urban years in 2015 through 2018, when they got to the playoff a couple of times, didn't win anything, got smashed by Clemson in 2016. and then didn't make the playoffs in 2017 or 2018 after a couple of really bad Big Ten losses. I think that's just where the program was. They were fed up with all these close losses in big games, and I got it. And that's what I said all year long is that, until Ryan Day wins these big games, I'm going to say he's not going to win them. And he proved me wrong. And for his legacy, I think it answers a lot of questions. And I think the final question will be answered whenever that Michigan game is in 2025 and he beats them. That kind of ends it right there. That kind of ends it. And, this is a huge step, and he's now 99% of the way there and deserves the credit and flowers and the contract extension that he'll surely get. He deserves that. Um, and he'll put the final piece of the crown together when he beats Michigan in 2025. So overall, just really happy for him and his players. And clearly the guys have believed in him from day one. I mean, you look at a guy like Jack Sawyer, committed early, hometown kid, built the class, helped build the class, kept all those guys around, and all those guys stuck around and committed to Ohio State. They're from all over the country. You had 3 guys in the senior class from the state of Washington. You had a guy like Jordan Hancock coming up from Georgia. I mean, it's all over. You have Will Howard transferring in from Pennsylvania, Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss by way of Alabama. Uh, and these guys like playing for Ryan Day, and I give him credit for that. And he's been a champion of mental health, and he's been a champion of caring about his players. And he's just a good man, a good leader of men. And I'm glad that he has earned a trophy now to go alongside being a great leader of men.
Well, to parlay off of that, um, I would say that no, Ryan Day showed a lot of patience this year with his team because we all knew it, and he certainly knew it that at any moment this team could flip the switch with the talent on the field that was just surreal compared to the competition most of the year. Um, but you have those games against like Nebraska where you're like, how is this even remotely a game? The game against Penn State where, we dug ourselves, Will Howard had the interception, but we dug ourselves into this hole. And then, we end up having to, at very last play, seal the game on a read option while Howard keeps the ball, redeems himself in that sense. But there's just these games, obviously Oregon was the same way. Just these games throughout the year where you're like, why isn't this just clicking? And I think Day realized, throughout the year, at some point these guys are going to have to do it. Obviously against Michigan, there was situations where the players weren't in the best chance for them to succeed. Whether that's him, whether that was Chip Kelly, who knows? But at the end of the day, the players, you could tell that something was weighing on them, a pressure bigger than their talent, because it was causing them to do things that were just so out of character. And obviously that loss, that team meeting that Day ended up attending, it sounds like from what Sawyer was saying, it feels like that just cleared out a lot of ego and really put everyone on the same page of like, hey, we're the favorites. Like we were the favorites. We're the most talented team in the country, blue chip ratio wise. We know what we're capable of. At this point, they just said screw it, and we saw the results. And it's like, obviously Ryan Day is happy with the playoff performance, but he's like, man, you guys put me through it a few times this year, and it was just nice to see everything come together for 4 games. And to just see that max potential of, like you said, just literally never trailing basically in the playoff, and being up by double digits constantly, for quarters and halves and games. So it was amazing. It's something that you still have to process.
I want to talk about Will Howard for a minute too here. He's gotten a lot of criticism throughout the year that he was questioned when he came to Ohio State. Ryan Day took a lot of flack for that. And why are you choosing a guy like Will Howard? He only completes 59% of his passes. People forget the fact that you can come to a better system with better players, with better coaches, and you can level up and you can improve in your game. And I think that's exactly what Will Howard did. I mean, he proved to be a phenomenal leader in the locker room. I think probably the best quarterback leader Ohio State has had since JT Barrett. And he was phenomenal for Ohio State. He was absolutely excellent and precise in the playoff games. That one interception he tried to force to Jeremiah Smith looked predetermined in that. That was his really only mistake that he made in any of the 4 games. And I think it goes to show Ryan Day is a great quarterback evaluator, but those two just had a synergy all year long. He got to work with Chip Kelly. He said at media day that coming to Columbus is the best decision that he's made in his life. Coming to be a Buckeye. He said it in his post-game interview too on the field. I mean, it really worked out with Will Howard, and I think he deserves his flowers too. And he deserves a lot of credit for the level of play that he provided down the stretch for Ohio State in those big games. I know he had a couple moments during the season where you scratched your head or was like, why'd you do that? But everybody does. And I think he proved to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year. He ended up leading the FBS in QBR. I mean, when you look at a guy that is overshadowed by a name that says Jeremiah Smith or Travion Henderson and Quinshad Judkins or an Emeka Ibuka or Seth McLaughlin, or on the defensive side of the ball, you're dealing with Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau and Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom and Denzel Burke. You can go on and on. How long until you say Will Howard when you go through that list of Buckeyes? But I think Will Howard was one of the most important Buckeyes this year on that team. His presence in the locker room, his poise in big moments, and his level of play in the playoffs was absolutely spectacular. And he was deserving of that MVP. I mean, it was 1A and 1B with him and Quinshon Judkins having the 3 touchdowns and probably Jeremiah Smith for just icing the game on that 3rd down. But David, for Will Howard, what's your reaction to how he played this season, but particularly down the stretch in that playoff run?
Well, let me say this first, that when he committed to Ohio State, it was January 4th of last year, January 4th of 2024. And I searched this the other day. I got a bunch of texts from friends that were Buckeye fans and friends that weren't Buckeye fans asking me what I thought about it. And I looked it up. The thing that I kept saying is this guy is a winner. And I was right. And, give him so much credit. I mean, he was exactly what Ohio State needed. And I had a conversation with a friend last night about the Ryan Day era quarterbacks and which ones on this team could have led them to a championship. And we came to the determination that there was only 2. It was Will Howard. It was Justin Fields. CJ Stroud couldn't have done it. Dwayne Haskins couldn't have done it. It was Will Howard and it was Justin Fields. And Will Howard, like I said on January 4th, he's a winner. And, he went to Kansas State, paid his dues, sat when he sat, came in, won a Big 12 championship. And it was crazy to think that he wouldn't be an upgrade over Kyle McCord. I mean, that was just absolutely crazy. Ohio State was going nowhere with Kyle McCord. They barely beat Notre Dame, 17-14, whatever it was. Hardly an impressive performance. They lose to Michigan, and there's just problem after problem. And Will Howard comes in. And I think the bottom line is that Will Howard is a 23-year-old man. And that's it. He is mature. There was no need for Ryan Day to coddle him like he had to do with CJ Stroud at times or McCord or Dwayne Haskins. And Will Howard is a 23-year-old man who was given the keys to a Ferrari and told not to drive it off the cliff. And he did not. He got it to the finish line and was excellent in doing so. And he is a well-deserved forever Buckeye legend. And I have nothing but good things to say. And I don't think there's a Buckeye fan who should have anything bad to say about Will Howard. Even had they lost that game, he was everything that they could have wanted him to be. And it was magnificent. I give him a ton of credit. And people are saying it, but it really is true. I wish we had another year with Will Howard because he loved being a Buckeye and we loved having him. And I just give him a ton of credit.
David, is it fair to say that Will Howard is probably one of the most likable Buckeyes ever? I mean, if you take the sample size, he's been here for a year. Like you just said, I think the entire program and all of Buckeye Nation wishes like, man, I wish we could have this guy under center again next year. He was such a joy to watch. He was outstanding to cover. He was an even better person when you got to meet him. But I mean, I think he's one of the most likable Buckeyes that we've ever had. And then for the sample size, just in 1 year to be that beloved by the fan base at the end of the season, I think goes to show his character and his integrity and who he is as a football player, but also as a human being. And this is on a team with incredible people. I mean, there are incredible athletes and high character guys on this team with Travion Henderson, Emeka Ibuka, Ryan Day, G. Scott. I mean, I could name so many guys on this team of such high character, but when you look at it, I mean, Will Howard really stands out as, man, that guy is also a true Buckeye. And I think there are a ton on this team, especially in that senior class. There are a lot of guys that just played their last game of the Scarlet and Gray that are forever Buckeyes, that are guys that you're like, man, I loved covering that dude, or I loved watching him play, and I wish he could never leave.
Yeah, I'll chime in again real quick here, and then Grant, obviously, you can come in with your thoughts this year, and really, especially through the playoff run, is that these guys are all professionals, at this point. These guys, and I'm talking about Ohio State specifically. I know that NIL, obviously, everybody's a professional, but I mean, Ohio State, these guys are professionals. And what I mean by that is they are old. They are guys who could have gone to the NFL and contributed in the NFL this year. And instead, they all came back. And, that sets a tone in your locker room. You have a former NFL head coach as your offensive coordinator. You have a former NFL assistant as your head coach. You have a former NFL assistant as your defensive backs coach. I mean, you've got NFL guys up and down the roster, up and down the coaching staff, and they play like it. And they're mature young men that are, of drinking age. I'm just using that again as an example, just that they are older than their counterparts that they are playing against. And it really means something. And you saw this a similar thing happen with Michigan in 2023 with that same NFL pedigree and that same NFL player structure. And obviously, those guys haven't done well in the NFL, and there's probably a reason for that. But maybe something else it would be similar about Ohio State. But the point is, they're all professionals, and they are likable for that reason. They are young men who are very mature and lived up to what they were supposed to do and stuck around an extra year in order to do it. So yes, Will Howard, very likable. This whole team will go down as one of the fan favorite teams, even though they lost to Michigan. Winning a title kind of cures that. And yes, for sure, Will Howard likable, and he will never have to buy a drink in Columbus ever again.
Yeah, I just impressed with Will Howard's performance, start to finish in the playoff. It's just remarkable to see, growth. Like you said, I mean, he's a mature guy, and much of this team is. But I mean, he was putting up record-setting performances in the postseason, and like you said, he ended up leading the country in QBR. He started the game, I think, 12 for 12 against Notre Dame. I mean, the guy was just on another level. And you saw someone who was, borderline draftable to now a guy who would probably get, a second or a third round draft grade just because of his performance in the postseason and seeing what he's capable of against the best competition that he can face. Obviously he's a little more experienced, but the numbers don't lie. And I think, though, like we've highlighted, Will Howard's intangibles, just his leadership and kind of the energy he injected into the team, I think it really kept the Buckeyes run alive. And it was really fueling, each and every week for the team. And I was just really impressed with him as a whole, for sure.
Let's talk some Jeremiah Smith here too, as he's a true freshman, and the season he had was just unbelievable. And to think that there are still 2 more full seasons ahead of Jeremiah Smith, hopefully in Scarlet and Gray, all 3 years, and there's no reason why we shouldn't think that, is just breathtaking. You're like, man, that guy is the best player on the field, and he might be able to get drafted right now in the first round and start on many NFL rosters, which is insane to think for a 19-year-old. But Brian Hartline's got him for 2 more years. So what did Jeremiah Smith mean to this team this year, Grant? Especially in those big moments. We saw him flash the entire playoff, more of a quiet decoy game against Texas because of the bracket coverage that they ran on him. But he just exploded early against Tennessee, against Oregon, and then he contributed well all game against Notre Dame and came up big in that final moment. He warned them, don't play that one-on-one man coverage. Notre Dame came out in cover 1. He got the matchup on the edge. And there he goes down the sideline, catching that ball 5-6 yards behind the coverage, easily secures the catch, gets some extra yards, and sets up that game-winning field goal. So what does it mean to have number 4 on a team like this for Ohio State and his impact that he had on the Buckeyes this season?
Oh, I mean, it means everything. He was the ultimate equalizer. People knew that obviously this guy's going to be very good. He was a number 1 recruit at wide receiver. And every indication was that this guy was going to be incredible. And then you hear the rumors of him, or you see the catches in practice preseason. Then we come to find out that he's just going to be starting, to start the season. Uh, and then we see that not only is he starting, he's probably going to be our best option on any given down throughout the entire season. So I think, you have these teams, you know, you know, just finding out about him, over adjusting, under adjusting, and just kind of, like you said, even against Texas, there was images of him being bracketed with three guys, you're putting a quarter of your defense on one side of the field just to cover one guy. Think about the space that gives Carnell Tate and Agbuka and Henderson and everybody. It was just something that it was kind of the cheat code that Chip Kelly, you could see, used to his advantage the entire playoff. And he went with tendency breaker nonstop. I was listening to Russillo and Pollock, and there was a stat of Ohio State ran counter about 2% of the time during the regular season, and it
Yeah.
was close to half of the time in the postseason. So you couple that with people trying to figure out what to do with Jeremiah Smith. It was a beautiful, beautiful, plan to watch and performance to see, a 19-year-old at that size put on the performances he has. It's going to be amazing the next 2 years to watch.
Yeah, it's special. And I've talked a lot about Ohio State's NIL spending and how they've done it in a way that I feel is appropriate. And what I've meant by that is that they're not taking the Texas A&M approach of just buying a recruiting class. They're not taking the Michigan approach of spending $12 million on a single player. Um, what I like in those two is kind of investing in crypto, where it's speculative. You don't know what you're going to get. You could get huge results and be a billionaire, or you could lose it all. And Ohio State has decided to invest in the S&P, and they know what they're going to get. Yeah, they're investing in known commodities like Caleb Downs and Quinshon Judkins, and Jeremiah Smith falls into that bucket. Like, you know what you're going to get from this guy. He was called one of one, and I know that label's been thrown around before, but it was obvious to anybody that watched. It was obvious to anybody in spring ball. There was a video of him making some circus catch over Denzel Burke and Caleb Downs in spring ball. And you're like, okay, like this guy, he's going to be pretty special. And he trots out there. They throw him the first pass of the year. He drops it, and then he never drops anything else the rest of the year. And he's the best. He could start on 30, however many NFL teams there are. He'll start one of them right now. Uh, and it's pretty special. And Grant, like you said, the next 2 years are going to be even more special. And, he's just truly a great player, and very cool to see him get a national championship in his first year. And they don't win it without him, obviously. So just another very excellent storyline. Um, and the generational label might have been lived up to for the first time since LeBron, and that's pretty cool.
It absolutely is. And David, like you said, they don't win it without him. And this Ohio State team beat 5 top 5 teams this season. That's the first time that's ever been done in the history of college football. They beat 6 of the other college football playoff teams. So they beat half the field. And when you see a team like that that puts together that kind of run, that historic run at the end there, and it's going to become more common to have to go through really tough roads in the college football playoff just because of how the seeding is going to work. But I don't think we're ever going to see that Cinderella team. I don't think we're going to see the Boise State or Arizona State go and win a title. I think your Cinderella team or your feel-good story of the playoff will look like Ohio State, a really good team that took a loss that was unexpected, that gets underseeded, and then they go ahead and win a championship game. And when you see something like that, this team puts together 5 top 5 wins. What does that mean to you when looking at this team in the breath of one of the greatest teams of all time or one of the greatest runs of all time?
Well, I mean, it certainly is the greatest run of all time. I think that's pretty undisputed at this point. To do what they did in those 4 games, beating Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame in a row in the span of about 6 weeks, is has never been done, and probably will never be done again. To do that, what they did as the 8 seed, and obviously they were more talented than the 8 seed, but that's what they deserved. And they got a hard road and took the hard road and went through the hard road and came out the other side with a championship. Best team ever? I don't think they deserve that. They could be. They could be, but the best team ever doesn't lose 2 games. And, like it or not, they might be the most talented team ever, but they're not the best. And, I will give them credit for their run. It's the best run ever, but they're not the best team ever.
Absolutely fair take. And I want to pose this question as we wind down the show. This will be our closing segment. David, I'll ask it to you first, and then Grant. We have debated this in Buckeye Nation circles for a long time. Would you rather beat Michigan or win a national championship? And it's never happened before. We've never had the opportunity to know how one or the other feels. Ohio State fans have known what it's been like to beat Michigan or lose to Michigan, but not what it's like to lose and then win a national championship and have the either or would you rather. So, David, I'm going to ask it to you first. Would you rather beat Michigan or win a national championship now that you've experienced it if you're a Buckeye fan? How do you answer that?
I actually answered this question for myself after the Tennessee game. And I decided that the championship means more because if you look at like the NFL, for example, the Lions could lose to the Packers twice. The Bengals could lose to the Steelers twice. If they win the Super Bowl, those losses don't matter. Like it sucks. Like that Sunday sucks when you lose to the Steelers or whatever. Like I hate that. But at the end of the day, if you win the Super Bowl, it doesn't matter. And I think that's just how college football is now too. Like, if you make the playoffs and you win the championship, like it just doesn't matter anymore. Like obviously it'll suck on that Saturday to lose to Michigan, and it sucked so bad this year again. But they won the championship and Michigan didn't. And I think that's just the new age of college football and how things are now is that the regular season matters, obviously, because you need it to get into the playoffs. But if you drop a game here or there, and this year it just so happened to be a really bad missed time game. If Ohio State, if they didn't lose to Michigan, had they lost to somebody else instead of Michigan, nobody's talking about it. They're talking about how Ohio State beat Michigan, and now they just won the national championship. So I think that's just how college football is now. It's a new age. It's a new era. It's more like the NFL, and that's just how fans got to look at it. And it's going to be the same if Alabama loses to Auburn and wins one, if Michigan loses to Ohio State and wins one, and so on down the line. That's just how it's going to be. That's how it is now.
Yeah, it's definitely it is different now, and it's also the fact that it's getting the last laugh at the end of the day, especially going through the gauntlet, having to go through a 4-game gauntlet no matter what, but especially this 4-game gauntlet, it kind of puts doubters to sleep. Obviously, it doesn't put trolls to sleep because nothing does, but. It's at the end of the day, it's the last laugh. We have the national title. It's history now. You can't take it away. We have more. It's just kind of like, at the end of the day, is it a recruit going to come to you because you win titles or because you beat Michigan and you lose titles? They're going to come because you win national titles. So overall, I think it's just better to win the title.
Yeah, and that's certainly going to be debated throughout this entire offseason amongst Buckeye Nation on how they would feel one way or the other. So I am curious to see what that poll would look like throughout the summer because there is nothing that compares to winning a title, but also that rivalry is the fabric of college football. So quite an interesting debate for sure. But David, let's throw this back to you. We have given you this closing FaceTime segment throughout the college football playoff, and it's done well. So as per tradition here, here's your closing FaceTime segment. What are your final thoughts on this, again, jubilant episode of Saturday Cadence?
Yeah, I mean, and it's special. It's so special. And, this isn't a knock on you guys or anybody who's a fan out there, but, I am one of us three who attended and graduated from the school. And I only say that because I was up there for 4 years recently. I spent a lot of time there. I spent a lot of time inside the Woody and around the program when I was with 11 Warriors. And I know how hard they work every day. And I know how hard the fans care. I know how much they care. And myself included, I know how much the students care. There were times when, they would lose a game. I remember the first game I ever went to as a student was the 2017 Oklahoma game. And they lost that game. And campus was dead. It was dead for weeks. And I just remember thinking, I'm just a little true freshman there. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, man, like, is this going to be how my Ohio State experience goes? Like, is this, I came here, I was, born and raised Cincinnati, born and raised an OSU fan, went to went to Ohio State, and I'm like, man, is this how it's going to be for 4 years? Like, did I just stumble into the worst era of OSU football? And obviously that's not how it turned out. But all that to say that it's been a long time coming. And for me, I've been writing about this program since I was 16 years old, 10 years now. And Blake and Grant, you guys have been along for the ride pretty much the entire time. And I know how special, we have talked about it internally, how special it is for everybody. But, for Buckeye Nation and my fellow fans out there and everybody who listens to this who might be a Buckeye fan, just, great patience, great support. It was so magical and fun to watch. And I was up there for the Tennessee game, and just to see how things were when Ohio State ran out on that field and got booed. So what they are now is just where they are now is just magical. And I'm proud to be a Buckeye alum today, proud to be a Buckeye fan today. And I'm sure there's thousands of other people who are having the same emotions that I am. And you guys who aren't alums, I'm sure the same emotions apply to you. And, you guys are lifelong fans. I hate the argument that, if you don't graduate from a school, you can't be a fan, because you guys have been fans, your whole lives. And we've talked at length. I just mentioned about my story, and for Buckeye Nation, it's just I'll cap it off here. It's just phenomenal, and the celebration on Sunday, I'm sure, will be well attended. I'm debating going up myself here from Cincinnati, and it'll just be a release of emotion after all these years of disappointment. And it's all relative, right? Because Ohio State still over that period the winningest program, and they're always in the thick of things, but they never seem to just break through, and they finally did. And it was just a cathartic release of emotion. And I'm so happy for everybody who spending so much time there. It starts to be ingrained in you. And the myths are true that it's in your blood. And when you go to a school like that, or you're a fan of a school like that your whole life, that's just how it is. And it's just, again, just a great release of emotions in a positive way for the first time in forever. And I'm so happy for everybody. So appreciate the FaceTime, and appreciate everybody listening all year long. You're out here on Saturday Cadence, cross some milestones on our end this year. And to have that be in conjunction with a national championship is extra special. So, Blake, I'll let you take it home, but I really appreciate everybody out there and Ohio State, and how opportunities have been given to us through this show and what we've done over the past 10 years. So, congratulations to Ohio State and to our team as well. It's been fun.
No, absolutely hasn't. It's extremely well put, Dave. And how cool is it too that you see Ohio State and Notre Dame in that national championship game? They're two of the biggest fan bases in college football, whether that is with alumni or that is just with fans in general. They're the two largest. And it really was the cathartic release. Like you said, it was a freeing moment. And you could see that on the sidelines in the program. You could feel it. It was emotional for the fans and for the players and for the families and everybody else. So an extremely special moment. And like you said, too, it's a well done to our team as well over the last 8 to 10 years for what we've covered, the opportunities that we've gotten to do. So it's extremely exciting to do that with a national championship there. And we're excited for what's to come, because we're continuing coverage for you guys all throughout the season. There is no off season anymore. It is college football year round, and we're excited to bring that to you. So continue to stay tuned to Saturday Cadence and to the Silver Bulletin at tsilverbulletin.com. Check it out on our socials. We appreciate you listening to the show. Make sure to like and subscribe to it and leave us a review. And we will see you guys next time. God bless.